Hey, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, I'm glad that you're here. So I'm wondering, why do you kill deals? Like if you're in sales, why are you killing your deals? And how can you stop that? The great news is, if you're not sure, I brought someone to talk to. My friend, George Brontén. George is a lifelong entrepreneur with 20 years of experience in the software space, and he has a big passion for sales and marketing. He's looking for new ways to achieve improved business results using innovative software, skills, and processes. He's got an award-winning blog called The Art and Science of Complex Sales. He's got a team at membrane.com, and his new book is called Stop Killing Deals. And I'm super excited. We're going to talk about that. A lot of it is stuff you can actually prevent. Really excited about that. And George comes to us from his bunker somewhere in parts unknown. What's up, George?
Hey, thanks for that nice introduction. Yeah, from my bunker and sort of man cave here at home in Stockholm, so in Sweden.
Yep.
That's where I'm at.
That's
Thanks for inviting me to the show, Phil.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So first, I got to ask, how did you get started in sales? Like, what was your first sales job? What did you learn there?
Wow. Yeah, I think it was at a store who sold loudspeakers. So I'm a speaker fan. You can see a good piece of speakers behind me here. So they were selling sort of IKEA kits. So you could build your own loudspeakers. And that to me at the time was super exciting. So I was selling that and helping people design their own loudspeakers. So I think that was my first job. And then I went on to selling books, actually, talking about books today. So that's I sold the For Dummies books to bookstores in Sweden.
Wow. You sold the dummies books in Sweden. That's pretty cool. So I thought you guys were really smart in Sweden. Why would you need For Dummies? I don't understand, George.
Yeah, I don't get it either. Those were actually pretty smart books.
Yeah.
But when we launched the Sex for Dummies, I pulled out and I said, okay, guys.
You pulled out of sex. Good job, George.
I pulled out of the sex industry.
Very nice. Well done, George. Awesome, man. So that's cool. So you sold books. Interestingly enough, I sold books too. I worked for 800 CEO Read for a while, or now Porchlight Books. So yep. So cool, man. That's really cool. So software though, right? Software is your thing. So technology is where it's at, right, man? We just automate AI and people buy. Is that how that works?
Right. We don't even need salespeople anymore.
Okay, right? Good. Well, this has been a good conversation. No, come on.
Yeah, no, I'm quite anti that. I think automation is cool. You can do a lot with automation, but in the type of selling that I'm interested in, which is complex B2B sales, IT, technology, AI should all be in salespeople. It's not going to replace them. So yeah, I'm no big fan of these tools that are just spamming people like crazy, and we're hoping that people come back to us and say, hey, I want to buy. It's like, it's too simplistic. Doesn't work like that. So yeah, AI is cool if we can use it to make machines do work for us so that we can improve and get better. Love that. But this whole thing, automating sales, maybe in transactional. I mean, in transactional, it's already happening, right? Amazon is fantastic. They're selling tons of things without having salespeople. But in the B2B sale, it's about humans. And that's what I focus on.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about that augmentation, George. I mean, your company Membrane is a sales enablement CRM for those B2B folks. So what should the role be of CRM, and what is it in a lot of organizations?
Yeah, so the book is built on a number of assumptions, faulty assumptions, as I call them. And I think the CRMs were built on those same very assumptions, that salespeople are born, they are disciplined, they're rational, and they should just log what they've done in the CRM. So unfortunately, I think CRMs have become just graveyards of information, and salespeople feel like data entry clerks, and it's just a big brother tool that someone else is going to look into to see if you've done enough, but it's not really helping you or guiding you. So they've become very fancy digital Rolodexes, basically.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I mean, and I would say an unfancy digital Rolodex is really LinkedIn, right? That's even less fancy in many cases, but yet could be more fancy if we use it correctly. Are you seeing that too? I mean, that's how we know each other, is from LinkedIn. So what do you think about LinkedIn? How does that play?
LinkedIn is fantastic. I mean, it's a Rolodex that updates automatically. People update it, so we don't have the same data quality issues as a sort of static CRM. And I love it. It's perfect. I mean, you reach people, you can connect with people, people share interesting information. So that's a fabulous tool for any salesperson. Yeah. So I have nothing negative to say. And then of course they build tools on top of that, like the Navigator and stuff. And Microsoft bought them, and they're very protective about their data, and all that stuff is stuff that I don't like, of course, as a vendor, because we're not allowed to access any of that information, which of course would be helpful for clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some of those faulty assumptions, and then we'll talk more about the book, right? Let's talk about those assumptions that kill some of these deals. I really like the fact that you lead with the faulty assumption that great salespeople are born. So where do we even get that assumption, man? That's just so ridiculous when you say it out loud, and yet some people really believe that.
Yeah, and I also think we believe things, we make assumptions without really consciously thinking about it, right? And there is they're getting to be a professional education to become a B2B salesperson, but historically there haven't been. So I think that's one of the reasons there haven't been really a profession. You've gone into sales out of, I don't know, coincidence, or because it's a way to make money even though you don't have an education and different things. And then when I think sales and leaders and company leaders don't really know enough about sales to make wise decisions about how to organize sales, who to recruit, how to manage them, how to help them, guide them, support them, coach them, etc. So we as leaders, and I did this mistake, we just go after people that have sold something before for someone else, and we assume that they will sell in our company, whatever we're selling, because selling is selling, right? But of course, it's much more complex than that, because if you're selling something transactional, that's such a different way of selling than if you're selling a super complex 8-month sales cycle software, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot more hit and run there, huh?
Yeah, the hit and run, and that's where I think a lot of people, when they think about sales, they have this image of a person being very talkative, social, extrovert, talk people into buying stuff they don't need, sort of a negative image of salespeople, or this classic used car salesman kind of idea. Oh, that's a salesperson. But selling is so different depending on what you sell. So we have to change that image and change that assumption that salespeople are somehow in a certain way, and they're born like that. So that's dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. There are few things that hit and run sales that can't be automated. I mean, we talked about that at the outset, right? The AI and the automated thing. I mean, Amazon crushes that. There's no reason that you would hire someone to do what can be done by a machine more effectively, more efficiently, quicker, and honestly cleaner. Because frankly, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want a conversation, right? I don't want to have to talk to a salesperson for something like that. But if it's more complex, then I want to have that consultative conversation. I want you to be an expert, right? I want you to guide me, and I want you to provide me with some insight that I couldn't otherwise have, and maybe challenge some of my assumptions too. Is that more in line with the salesperson you're talking about, George?
Yeah, I think as soon as you get into more of a longer sales cycle, multiple people involved, you need to become much more of a value seller or consultative seller. So you need to know much more about the customer, their business, their industry, your stuff, your competitors' offerings, and how you can help someone and how you can get on their side and guide them to away from something where they don't want to be towards something more positive and where they want to be in the future. So helping buyers, I don't like the word buyers actually, helping decision makers inside of companies to come to a decision is really what I think selling is about.
Yeah, and I would include in their best interest.
Of course,
right? Because we want that to, you say always, right? And I would say always, but then we see that's not always the case, right? Because some people have commission breath. They're trying to force that. That's why we have such complex sales now, is because at some point somebody made a purchase that was not in their best interest. They got forced into it by somebody who's got the doorknob closed or some crap like that some of these awful salespeople talk about. And so now it's like, no, hold on. They can't just dissuade you. They have to persuade 10 of us. Now we've got decision by committee, right?
Yeah. But I think also now in this time of the subscription economy, it's getting harder to do that, right? You can't really trick someone into buying something, or you can, but they'll only be with you for a year or a month, depending on the subscription term. So I think salespeople and companies just need to become much more long term and be aligned with buyers in a greater sense than they might have been or have been forced to be in the past. So I think that's a good thing for both buyers and sellers, that buyers now are more flexible. They can go in and out of agreements in another way than used to be the case in the past, especially in my industry, in the software industry.
Yeah, absolutely. With software as a service, there's no longer those long-term things. You don't buy shelfware. You might get it for a year. If you don't use it, though, you're probably not going to renew. I mean, if you don't have 60, 70%, 80% adoption, you're probably not going to renew that purchase.
Yeah. So you have to be on the customer side, or it's going to be a very short-lived customer. Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about some of the other stuff in your book, because Stop Killing Deals is a great book. Again, I think for the complex B2B seller, especially in software, really important, multi-channel, multi-threaded, multi-person on there. We have to do this. And one of the things that I love that you stress in the book is about self-discipline, and the fact that that's a bit of a myth, huh? So talk to us about that, George. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and that's one of the assumptions that I think people make also about salespeople, that salespeople are somehow by nature super disciplined, and they will do anything that it takes to reach the targets that we set up for them. And really, discipline is doing stuff now that might be painful for the long-term benefit of actually doing it. So it's a bit like working out, right? You know, it's good for you, but it's easier to just sit on the couch and have some candy, right? So having discipline is something that I think all human beings struggle with, because you have to work with your own mind to sort of give up something in the near term to gain something in the long term. So nobody's really, I think, born with discipline, but we have to work on it, and we have to help our salespeople to be disciplined, and that ties into motivation, right? You have to be motivated in able to be disciplined, or maybe you don't have to, but it definitely makes it easier. And in selling, I think these assumptions is that salespeople somehow they're just money interested. They're going to do stuff just to get through their commission and get the bonus check. Also not true. And we've read books about that, I'm sure, that motivation by money only takes you that far. Then you actually have to get higher into sort of values and feel meaning about what you're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely, right? Those deeper things. And again, as we elevate a profession, right, different things motivate us. It's no longer, the bottom of the hierarchy, no longer the bottom of the pyramid there. We're getting more motivated by, serving. We're getting more motivated by making a difference. We're getting more motivated by, I feel good about the fact that I helped someone, things like that, right? And I think that is a big shift and a big understanding. And it's also why it's really important to figure out what your values are, right? As a salesperson, you have to understand, like, why are you doing this, right? That helps us then with that willpower. If we focus on that, I mean, I love the story that you talk about in the book about the chocolate chip cookies, right? The fact that if there's chocolate chip cookies there, you're probably not going to have much willpower. You're probably going to eat them. If you got some celery, you're probably going to be okay giving that up, right? And I think that's really interesting, because that definitely relates to selling, right? If you've got shiny objects over here on your sales floor, you're probably going to get your team to go play with some shiny objects. But if you put that far enough away and you make it a reward, now we've got an opportunity here to do something greater. Is that a little bit also about what you're talking about here, George?
Yeah, definitely. And I like the marshmallow test that I'm sure you've seen and read about. Yep. When they put a marshmallow in front of kids and they said, if you don't eat it, you'll get another one. And then they leave the room and wait and see how the kids react. And some just eat it right away and some wait and get another one. So that's quite funny. And I think that's just human behavior. If we have, in this example, something tasty to go eat, it's really difficult to not do it unless you have something else that you feel is more important. And I think that's something we struggle with all the time. So now in these times, a lot of people are working from home, right? And that also requires discipline, because it's easy to go do something else in your home than to actually do your phone calls. So you have to really work on that discipline and remove, like you say, remove things that are easy to get distracted by from your near environment, so to speak.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk a couple more concepts here in the book here, because it's a short read and yet it's a powerful read. There's a lot of stuff you say in here, George, that I've felt needed to be said and hasn't been said in a lot of books, and I really value the Stop Killing Deals model here that you've given us. And one of the things that I really like is the whole sales enablement piece. And this is almost a joke inside my organization, because nobody can define it the same way. And you wrote a white paper about how 20 people say sales enablement is something else. So how do you define it? And then what does that entail so that we can do it well?
Wow. Yeah. I always feel like I'm put on the spot when I get that question, because I don't really have, and nobody really has the perfect definition. I like the one that I think it was Bob Britton in the Sales Enablement Society who put that. It's about removing friction. I kind of like that. It's a super simple definition. Like, how do we just make it easier for the salespeople to help the buyers or decision makers make a decision? And that entails a lot of things, right? You need to have a strategy. You need to have a process. You need to have enablement content. You need to have someone who coaches you. You need to have analytics to see why you're winning and losing and how you can improve your strategy and your process. You need all of that stuff, right? You need training. And there's a lot of things that goes into enablement. I think where a lot of companies fall down is the orchestration of the actual execution, right? So how do you take all of these things that are or could be within the topic or of sales enablement and put them into the right order, and then make sure that they are all executed well. So it comes down to a lot, like many things, it's execution, right? Everyone can write a good strategy, but once you start executing it, that's when the rubber hits the road. So I think more time should go into coordinating the execution.
Yeah, well, and to that point, understanding what resources are required, what skill sets are required, what checklists are required to make this happen, because sales enablement is not just training. It's not just coaching, right? It's all these things. And I think that's often the miss. And I think that's also why we get it so wrong as sales leaders, is because it's things often that are outside of typical sales.
Yeah. And I think also what makes this a bit confusing is that it's a very cool buzzword right now, right? Sales enablement. Everyone wants to own it. So the tech vendors who have a content management platform, they call that sales enablement, and they want that to be all about content, right? Into context for your salespeople. So yeah, that's a part of it, but it's not everything. And these software companies have a lot of money for marketing budgets. So they push out their messaging, want everyone to believe sales enablement is what they have defined it to be. And I think a lot of that is confusing sales leaders out there. It's like, oh, I thought it was about content. But yeah, but it's also about this and that. And you have to sort of look at the holistic picture and say, okay, yeah, it's about really how do we help the types of customers we can help in the most effective and efficient manner, including everything that goes into that process, training, coaching, methodology, analytics, etc., etc. And what do we start with? Because that's another one I think people are struggling with. Where should they begin to enable their sales team? And believe it or not, but I see a lot of teams out there or companies that don't really have a sales strategy. And how can you then orchestrate sales enablement if you don't really know how you're going to go about? So then you just go buy these shiny tools, and yeah, that falls flat oftentimes.
Yeah, sales enablement is not about shiny tools at all. Certainly, tools can help accelerate, but certainly are not going to replace the fact you need a trainer, you need a coach, you need a process, you need systems, right? And then you need software that kind of models that, so that then we can assess, train, coach, improve, right?
Yep. And I think that's also, you started asking me about where CRMs have not been helpful. And I think that's why we're now seeing so many tools coming out from Silicon Valley and other places, because the CRM is not really helping. So then we create all these different tools, and oftentimes they are created to solve one problem, right? Oh, let's email faster, or let's call faster. And they're usually, because technology promises automation, they all try to do things faster. But unless you're doing the right things, I mean, you're just speeding up your failures. So, and I see a lot of that going on. You make things go faster without first having to really understood, okay, are we doing the right things in the first place?
Yeah. And while fail faster is great if you're doing the right thing, so we can find the point of failure, failing faster just because you're going fast and don't have a process defined is insanity, right? That's a great way to go bankrupt.
Yeah, but it's happening all the time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really interesting that you've said that. So you mentioned where people can start, right? And starting with some definition, starting with understanding, starting with that, right? Making sure that you have a process is great. But what else, George, should we put in our toolkit to make sure that we're starting smart and that we do stop killing these deals?
Yeah, my favorite is just identifying the single mistake that we are doing in the sales team. So I have this example in the book of my previous company when we were selling IT automation to managed service providers, and when scaling that team, I failed miserable. But one of the main problems that I found that we were doing in the sales team is that we were skipping to engage with the technical people. Right, so we convinced all the business leaders and the VP sales and the owners of these companies that they could become so much more effective and profitable. But the salespeople struggled or did not feel comfortable talking to the tech guys. And that resulted in the tech guys getting really scared and say, hey, if my boss buys this automation tool, I'm going to be out of a job soon. So they did everything in their power to prevent this deal from happening. So just by honing in on that one problem, we tripled the win rates. So that would be my recommendation. Look at what your salespeople are maybe doing wrong or might be skipping in the sales process. And by just changing that single thing would make a huge impact on your win rates.
Wow. That's great advice. Find the one thing and fix it.
Yeah. Start there, because I see too many companies are making it overly complicated when it comes to process. They want to design, the perfect process. They've thought about everything, and it just becomes over-engineered. Nobody wants to use it. It's not very helpful, and it crashes and burns. Instead, start super simple, and it's just by analyzing losses, right? And sometimes you come up with, oh my God, we're losing a lot against this competitor. And you bring everyone into a room and someone raises their hand. Yeah, I never lose against them. What are you saying? You're never losing against these guys. Everyone is losing against them. No, I'm not, because I know that they're really weak at this and we're really strong at that. And so I have this dialogue with these people and they buy. And you're like, wow, that's fascinating. Let's make sure everybody does that. So then you change the process and you get that person on a camera saying, this is how I do it. These are the resources I use. These are the people I convince. And this is how I put something in there so they won't be lured away by the competition. with this fancy, shiny object they have to their advantage. And you get that out to the entire team, and people start learning that quickly. So find those simple things and clone that.
Awesome. That's great advice. Great advice. So George, your book is Stop Killing Deals. People can get that at stop.killing.deals. Really simple to do. You wrote this book for the complex sale, but if there was one last piece of advice that you would give people, or one question that you hope that they would ask that might help them even more, besides the fix, find out what's simple that's broken while you're losing deals and fix that, what would it be and why?
That's a good one. So if I'm talking to the individual salesperson, I would probably have them ask themselves, what is holding me back, and how can I ask for advice on how to get past that? Hopefully that would be your manager, but maybe it's not. But usually we're the things that are holding us back is in our heads, and when you can get to grips on what that is, you can make huge advancements.
Awesome. So ask that tough question, folks. Figure that out, and then do something about it. Stop killing your deals. So George, it's a pleasure to talk to you today. Thanks so much for making time for me and for all of us, so we can learn how to stop killing our deals, fix our brain, get over those myths, fix the little things, and make a big difference. Thank you, George.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.